What is up, fellow nerds, and welcome back to the Dapper Snapper Gaming channel, and welcome back to How Do I Want to Do This? This is our series where we take a look at all playable options available to players in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, then we rank them on a scale of 1 to 10 and either build them or fix them depending on how they rank. Now today we begin our talks on the second of the Druid subclasses introduced or reintroduced in 2024 rules, and it is the one and only Moon Druid. You know it, you love it if you're a player, you hate it if you're a DM, and it has undergone a pretty massive change going into these new rules. So is it still the king that sits atop the throne above everything else? We're going to find out here in just a second. Before we do, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Share the video with your friends, and of course click the bell so you're notified when new videos are uploaded. So yeah, this has always been the king. This has always been 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, game-breakingly strong. This Druid is so strong, at least in 2014. Although, I will say that this, along with what we discussed last week, both of these have received very major overhauls, and so we'll have to see, did they pull this back? Did they make it a lot more manageable? Obviously there have been a lot of changes to general wild shaping, which of course we discussed in quite a bit of detail on our just general Druid guide, which I talked about, and that is up in the icon above right there for you to check out. But besides that, we're going to go ahead and talk about what specifically changed for this. So yeah, a few things changed, and by a few I mean basically everything. So starting off, of course, same as all Druids, what was a subclass at level 2 is now level 3. So we have now moved those on to a different level, but that's just the way that everything has been rebalanced. No problem there. So what we did get at level 2, what is now level 3, we used to get what's called Combat Wild Shape. Used to be what converted Wild Shape over to a bonus action for us, and then we could just heal ourselves as a bonus action while we were Wild Shaped. That's gone entirely. The bonus action activation is now just what every Druid can do, so we don't lose anything there, but we do lose the 1d8 healing as a bonus action while Wild Shaped. Is that a massive deal? I certainly liked having it, but I'm not going to say that it's necessarily detrimental to the whole thing if we lose that. It's not the worst thing ever. So next is circle forms, and of course we did get this before. This is really what made it so busted. And so this used to be we could wild shape into anything at CR1 right now, and then once we got to level 6 in Druid, it became 1/3 our Druid level rounded down. That's what CR we could go into. Now it just go ahead and right here at level 3, it is already CR is 1/3 of your Druid level rounded down. So we're there at CR1 right now already. And on top of that, we now can do different AC calculations, which is great. So it's always going to be AC 13 plus your wisdom modifier if that is higher than the beast that you are currently wild shaped into, which most of the time that will be the case. So that's certainly helpful. And you also get temp HP equal to 3 times your level rather than just the 1 times that normal wild shape would grant here. So very cool. Definitely a huge buff to our wild shape. So of course we are now getting access to the CR1s a little bit early. Obviously it's 1 level later than before, but everything is going to be a level later than before as far as this goes, so not a huge problem there. But the extra AC, that's new. The extra temp HP, that's new. Now the temp HP is of course different because before we just assumed the HP of whatever it is that we had turned into, but with this we just gain temp HP. You'll see why in a little bit, why that specifically, this change and how all this works honestly makes wild shape just completely different for how we treat that on Moon Druids versus any other Druid. So we'll come back to that in just a second when we get to level 6, because that's really where this kind of kicks off. But we'll come back to that at level 6. One other new thing we get here is our circle spells. So you get circle spells here. Of course, we talked about that with the land druid last week, and how they kind of redid that of 1 spell per level. And that's really what it is here. You get a cantrip, you get a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th level spell. Here's the kicker with this, though, is that you can cast these while you're in wild shape. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, actually, because no other druid can cast spells while in wild shape until very, very, very late, beyond what the majority of people will ever experience in a game of D&D. So that's a big deal. You get Starry Wisp. So, and I've talked about it before, I like Starry Wisp. I think it's a great cantrip. You can use that while wild shaped. So that gives you a ranged option. Not a ton of beasts have ranged options. There are very few, actually. So that's fantastic. Moonbeam, fantastic. We've talked about that, of course, because it's really, really good. Cure Wounds, you can just heal yourself or heal your ally, whatever you want to do. Conjure Animals, always good. Fount of Moonlight, which is another new one, and I love it, especially on a Moon Druid when we are wanting to deal a bunch of extra damage with melee attacks. Fount of Moonlight comes in play there, which is great. And Mass Cure Wounds. Every single one of these is good. This is all fantastic. So yeah, I really can't complain too much so far. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. The only potential issue really that I'm feeling here is just the limit to how many forms that you can have at a time. So right now it's just 4. Eventually that will become 8. But yeah, it's just the limit to the number of forms that you can access. That's really what's gonna be a problem for me, because you're really going to want to have a stealth option, so like a rat or something like that. You're going to want something that's like purely combat, so maybe like a wolf for now, since that's CR1. And so you can kind of make those things work, and it's okay, but obviously I would like to have access to more than just 4 forms, but that's a problem for all druids. Moving on to level 6, we used to get Primal Strike here, which made our attacks magical. This is no longer the case, and that's mainly just a big change going into 2024, where there was this split between bludgeoning, piercing, slashing that is or is not magical. That is largely removed in the 2024 rules, and so it really isn't relevant anymore, so we don't really see that here. Instead, we get improved circle form, so it's just gonna buff up our wild shape, which is good. So with this, so this comes with 2 buffs. One is Lunar Radiance, so our attacks while we are in wild shape are now dealing either whatever the normal type is or radiant damage. Pretty cool. I like that. On top of that, we have increased toughness. We can now add our wisdom modifier to Constitution saving throws. Now, of course, again, this only applies while you are in wild shape, but still, I like it, right? Because there is no restriction on us casting any of the spells that we got in our circle spells, or just maintaining concentration if it's not on that list. So that's great, and of course that will help us to maintain that concentration on things like Moonbeam, so that's cool. I like that a lot. Very, very, very neat. So here's the thing, is that our attacks are now beginning to be buffed up, right? Is that we can now deal radiant damage to them, and of course in the next level, because we're level 6 right now, so once we hit level 7, we're going to be getting things like Fount of Moonlight, and so our attacks are going to be getting these pretty decent buffs. What this means is that even your low CR creatures are going to actually have some use. It's not just necessarily the mindless choice of, oh, I'm taking the dinosaur, or I'm taking the mammoth, or the whatever. It's now that you can actually take the rat at any level and use that for your stealth kind of stuff, and you still get an 18 AC if you've got a +5 wisdom modifier, and you've still got a ton of temp HP, and you're not going to get necessarily knocked out of that rat form if you get hit, because you're no longer assuming the HP of what it is that you are transforming into. That's a pretty cool difference, and it definitely brings up the viability of some of these lower level things quite a bit, actually. Now, of course, are we always going to be looking at those mammoths and those saber-toothed tigers and things like that? Yes, when those become relevant, I'm still going to be looking to those. And if you're looking for suggestions for the wild shape options while you are using Moon Druid, because obviously these options are a little more expansive as you go. I'm actually going to not spend a ton of time on it in this video, just because we could talk about that for an entire video on its own. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link the Dungeon Dudes video, because they talked about it in depth on different CRs and that kind of thing. I agree with every single one of their picks, and so I'm just going to throw that up there in the icon above. Check out their video, and that will kind of explain what are really good options for that. I don't want to take up a ton of time on that here, but yeah, still pretty cool. I like that a lot, being able to maintain concentration easier while we're in wild shape, and of course dealing radiant damage if we need to get around some kind of weird resistance. Pretty cool stuff. At level 10, we used to get elemental wild shape, and this of course is what made players really upset to be losing this, because of course it's you could turn into an elemental. It's fun, right? It's really fun. Of course, this happened in Critical Role, and people loved that and that kind of thing. So it's very thematic. It's very fun. It's very strong. Very, very strong. That is gone. I'm sorry, it is gone. Instead, we get Moonlight Step, which is basically just Misty Step with a buff. So you can bonus action teleport up to 30 feet. But you also get advantage on the first attack you make on that turn. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. And you can do that wisdom modifier times per day. And if you want to do it again, you can of course expend a second level spell slot. Very cool. Very cool. And of course that can be used in and out of wild shape. I think that's great. I think that's really, really cool. Then finally, at level 14, we used to get 1,000 forms, which just allowed you to cast Alter Self. This was the clear weakest link of the entire subclass, and so I didn't really care about that. What we get now is called Lunar Form, and so you get a couple of things with that. First, improved Lunar Radiance. We now deal an additional 2d10 radiant damage when we hit with an attack that is from our wild shape form. Very good. Very, very cool. And then we also get Shared Moonlight. So this allows us to teleport someone with us when we use our Moonlight Step, the buffed up Misty Step, which is really, really cool. As long as they're within 10 feet of us, both when we leave and when we arrive, we're good. We're totally good. So that's also really good. That definitely helps with positioning. If you're at level 14, of course, you have access. You are rounding down at level 12, but still, it's still CR4 beasts that you can now move all around, which is not bad at all. So here's the thing. Moon Druids have obviously undergone a lot of changes, and the way that they operated has always been weird. Their scaling has always been strange, because they start off at level 2. Used to, they were absolutely insanely busted, because CR1 creatures at level 2 were really, really good. It got to a point where eventually you would just basically become unkillable. Then it kind of fell off a little bit. Then elementals came and you shot way back up at level 10, and that was really strong. And then it kind of fell off a little bit, and then when you got to like the very end, then it shot way back up again. So yeah, I would say that the curve on this is certainly a little more gradual than how it was a lot more like good, then insane, and then insane. Like it doesn't really do that anymore, which is a good thing. And so ultimately, I do think that this is a much better way of doing the Moon Druid, which some of you may think is surprising that I'm saying this. I do think that this is a better way of doing the Moon Druid. I do think that it is, they traded the durability for more versatility. Now, of course, we're still going to be limited in certain things, and that's mainly just because of how the wild shape feature works just by itself. Of course, we only have 8 forms once we get to the highest level on that, which is still restrictive, right? I still would like to have a form for all occasions, right? I want a swimming one. I want to be able to fly. I want my big combat one, which is going to be a mammoth once I'm high enough level. I want a stealth one. You know, there are a lot of things that I need to have in that back pocket, and the inability to just kind of choose out of wherever is not is not here, and I wish that it was. That's the only thing. But of course, all druids are gonna be dealing with that, unfortunately. But what do I rank this? It was a 10 out of 10 before, obviously, because I thought it was insane and broken and ridiculous. I still think this is a 10. I still think it's really strong. I still think it's really good. It's not necessarily for the same reasons. It's still very, very good. Obviously, Wild Shape is really, really strong on this. The beasts that are here are also still very good. A lot of beasts have lost the saving throws that were associated with inflicting certain things like prone, which is a big deal. Of course, spiders can restrain, and there's no saving throw as long as you hit with the attack. So there are several things that definitely help the druid out, especially at those low mid levels. And so I think it's cool being able to cast spells while you are in Wild Shape. Some of the best hits are really, really good. We get the ability to deal radiant damage, so that's really cool. Our con saves are better. We can teleport around. We can give advantage to ourselves. There's just a lot to like here, and I as much as I liked the old version, I think the new version is also very, very good. And so for that reason, I get a 10 out of 10 as well. So obviously that's passing grade, and we are going to be building one later this week. So I hope you all will stick around for that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. We also will have the return of Draft League videos. This week we had to delay a week just because of some scheduling issues with other teams. My team was the only one that battled on time. Everybody else was late. And so there was an extension there. So week 4 is going up this week. Week 5 is going up next week. And we should be going through that, finishing up very soon. I got the baby on the way very soon as well, so it's a whole thing. We're very, very busy, but so I hope you all will subscribe and to come along on that journey with us. Until next time, stay safe out there, stay healthy. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.